9:09. The board meeting is in session. We were going to call it the roundtable, but Frank Cusimano has been using the roundtable name for years. So we want to thank him for giving us the opportunity to use it, but we decided to call it the board meeting. It is officially in session. Tony Messenger was out late partying last night after that Game 5 victory. Could not make the early morning bell. He is sleeping in. Hopefully he joins us next week. Jane Dueker, our normal panel, is here, attorney and former chief of staff of Governor Holden. Good morning, Jane Dueker.
Good morning, McGraw.
Filling in for Tony Messenger is our number one reliever out of the bullpen. He throws 95 from the left-hand side. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Kanzler.
Yeah, left and right-hand side.
Left and no.
Ambi.
I thought you were right. Oh, yeah, you're a righty. Yeah, you're a heavy righty. Yeah. There you go.
Good morning, McGraw.
Good morning this morning. We should say that you, if you had any political skills and beat Claire McCaskill in the auditor's race, she would not be the United States Senator today.
That's right, and if no.
All right. Also from the far right,
you came, Jay. Good.
Also from the far right side of the bullpen, State Senator John Lamping, filling in for House Majority Leader John Deal, who is on assignment. John Lamping, thank you for joining.
Well, it's great to be here, McGraw, and I'm thrilled to know I'm filling John's shoes.
You are filling in John's shoes. There you go. First, let's start with Jane Dueker, since we just got finished talking with Bob McCullough, county prosecuting attorney, who yesterday in the newspaper, stltoday.com, Christine Byers broke the story that there was a meeting in which Bob McCullough tells Charlie Dooley, no soup for you. I'm not supporting you in this next election. Jane Dueker, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty staggering. Bob McCullough is, probably one of the most respected politicians in St. Louis County. He's one of the chief law enforcement officers, and I think it's pretty staggering when he has to, come out and say this isn't working. I mean, to me, he made a very good case saying that the very credibility of St. Louis County government has been jeopardized and is being jeopardized with things that have been going on. And frankly, I applaud his courage for standing up to his, own party and someone that he supported and saying we need a change.
We have three very smart people in this room. How does this hurt Charlie Dooley by not having the support of Bob McCullough?
Well, one, I think, as I said, I mean, Bob is probably the most popular politician on both sides of the aisle. I mean, and is respected and is law enforcement. And I think to not have that support, I mean, here you are, you have FBI investigations. You're embattled and embroiled with your police chief. Now, the county prosecutor. I mean, that starts to send a message that, this isn't working and it's fundamentally broken. And it is a big deal for him to come out and say that. And what is very disconcerting to me was the response that was given, which is, basically mind your own business. When all the law enforcement is raising the red flags, I think, Taylor Swift, sometimes it's you. And I think most people in the county are going to, I think this is going to put their heads up to say we've got a fundamental problem here, and the lack of remorse in the response, I think, only confirms what Bob was trying to say.
State Senator John Lamping, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot going on up until now, but I would concur with Jane that Bob McCullough is somebody who garners tremendous respect and admiration, both parties. We look at Bob as if he ever were to run for county executive, would be the most unbeatable Democratic nominee, and so for him to come out and be as concerned as he was and to express it the way he did, it's interesting to watch this thing unfold. It'll be curious to see what happens with respect to this nomination. And
does this hurt Dooley? I know it's embarrassing, but does it hurt him? Jay Kanzler, will this really hurt him?
Well, I think Miley Cyrus has a better chance of being invited to a Focus on the Family conference than Charlie Dooley does of being elected the Democrat nominee. It's just not going to happen. So
you think this is it? He's not going to get it?
I think this is probably one of the last nails in the coffin for him.
Yeah.
And it raises a question, I think, when one of the chief law enforcement officers in the county says, I'm not supporting you. Again, does that raise questions as to, is there more coming down the line with these criminal investigations by the FBI, by the state?
Right.
Go ahead, John.
Then who is a nominee?
Right.
Well, my question is, does this open the door for a Republican to come and say, hey, wait a minute, Democrats have been running the county for X amount of years. Why not throw us a bone and give us a chance to fix some of these problems?
Or even a Democrat.
Well,
in a
I
primary.
think the door's been wide open for a while, and I think that it just gets wider and wider. And I have to believe that the powers that be in the Democratic Party have got to understand where they are right now with the current county executive. And I'd just be shocked to see he ended up being the nominee.
Yeah.
Does he run?
I mean, obviously it's up to him if he runs. But I also think, I think the door is wide open, and it should be.
What about Mayor Slay? Mayor Francis Slay is holding fundraisers for Charlie Dooley while Labor is running in the opposite direction and Bob McCullough is running in the opposite direction.
That's fascinating. I mean, to me, that's,
Well, look, it's October. I mean, there are
a lot of time.
hundreds of times where one elected official supports the other elected official, and 3 or 4, 6 months later, he withdraws his support, or the decision that Charlie's going to make, the pressures that he's getting, it's all going on behind closed doors. And don't be shocked if he comes out somewhere in the next 60, 90 days and expresses the desire to spend more time with his family and do community service and things like that. I mean, that's how it works. But up until that moment, those people that have been your supporters, that have held you up, they don't stop holding. That's not who stops first. It's the nominee who stops first.
I think we can all agree that Mayor Slay's support of Charlie Dooley has everything to do with a county-city merger. And right now, that's his best opportunity, the mayor's best opportunity to see that move forward. That may quickly change as not his best opportunity to see it move forward.
But how long do you hold on for a city-county merger, but you're holding on to a piece of cabbage that is quickly going bad?
About 9:21 this morning.
Right, yeah. I mean, and the other factor, too, I think county executive's response of, nobody knocked on doors for me. I mean, this is a problem. I mean, money's going to dry up. I mean, if people are turning on you, and I agree, there's a lot more to the story. You're seeing the public part of it, but money's going to dry up. It is going to quickly. I think this is a sign that the walls are caving in.
How much worse could it be in private if in public Bob McCullough is coming on the show saying, "I told Charlie Dooley I'm not supporting you"? I mean,
well, that's the thing about Bob. He's going to say in front of you what he says behind your back and what he says. I mean, he's just that straight up of a guy. Now, I suspect there's a lot of other political maneuvering going on. But, Bob's about as straight up as you get, and when he makes a decision, he's clear about it. And the policy reasons he gave in the paper today were exceptional, and that isn't even all the problems.
Yeah, I mean, Bob's public-facing, but the
Right.
vast majority of people that influence situations like this are not public-facing. So the people that are going to talk Charlie out of this race are not going to be people you're ever going to hear from publicly. It's going to all go on behind closed doors.
The list, you forget of all the things that have gone on in the county, and he lists some of them. The county real estate official with a felony conviction for embezzling federal housing funds, the hiring of a tax collector delinquent on her own taxes, the $3.7 million crime lab contract with the former police board president Gregory Sansone is now in an FBI investigation, and the top health department administrator who committed suicide last month after it was discovered that he operated a fake company that collected $3.5 million in county contracts. Also including, which they always forget, which is my personal favorite, was Kathy Burkett, the sitting county councilwoman, getting a fee office as part of that whole deal. So, I mean,
and hiring people, a family of people close to him during a time of a county hiring freeze.
The temporary family hiring plan.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest hits or the less than greatest hits is definitely a 2-album set.
Right. The CD set is getting larger, and I think
the director's cut.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, last question. Who, Republican, Democrat, is rumored to be, who is operating a exploratory committee for county executive? Anybody got any rumors out there?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think there's always rumors. I mean, there's other electeds, both Democrat and Republican, that are always, going to be looked at.
John Lamping, are you looking at it?
I am not, but I will tell you, my good friend Senator Eric Schmidt could win.
Eric Schmidt.
He could win.
Eric Schmidt, who sat in your seat last week, who would get my support day one, since he's a supporter of Nurses for Newborns. So he automatically
You're one
get
issue
my
guy.
support.
That's your issue.
That is it. I'm a one-issue voter. You take care of Nurses for Newborns, I will take care of you.
I will say that certain people are suggesting that Bill Corrigan make another run at it.
Really?
Yep, he was.
A rematch. Eric Schmidt has not indicated that he wants the job, has he?
No, he is not. And but I'm not his only friend that is pushing and encouraging.
So there are people behind the scenes pushing him to run.
I would suggest there are people all across the region that are pushing him to run. And, he's He's focused on what he does right now, state senator. That's what
Right.
he's doing. But to me, it's never been a better opportunity in this century for us to take that office.
That is John Lamping, State Senator John Lamping. Jane Dueker, former Chief of Staff of Governor Holden. Jay Kanzler is with us as well. The government shut down the debt limit, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. State Senator John Lamping is filling in for John Deal. He comes from the 24th District. I know that means nothing to you, but it covers Clayton, Ladue, Creve Coeur. I believe Westport is part of your district as well,
It is.
right?
It is.
Yes.
You're in my district.
All right, so he's our guy. We can talk to him about some type of tiff later. But we'll go to State
No, I'm the wrong guy to talk about.
Yeah, I was
All right,
going to say you're the wrong one. Eric was here last week.
State Senator John Lamping, your party, according to the Gallup poll, has a favorable rating, a national rating of 28%. Democrats have a favorable rating of 43%. It's dropped because of the government shutdown. It's the lowest rated that a party has been ever since Gallup has been asking the question since 1992. What are your thoughts as you watch this federal government shutdown?
My thoughts are, it's interesting you did mention the third statistic in that Gallup poll, where the president's rating is this morning at 37%.
37%.
Yeah, and the last time a president was at 37% was back in 2006, and it was Wolf Blitzer ran his entire show around that rating and what that meant and where the American public was with respect to their president, and that was in 2006. So keep in mind, the press have been bashing Bush for almost 6 years before he hit 37%. And it's interesting, these last 24 hours, the focus has been on my party's rating, Democratic Party rating, and somewhere buried on page 10 is the fact that the president's approval rating is at 37%.
But it's still higher than the Republicans.
Hey, I'll take it. The gap between him and us is probably as narrow as it's been during his term in office.
What should happen, though? How is this going to end? Yeah. How is this going to end?
Right. I think first and foremost we're winning. I think that we will get a significant concession from the president. A lot of people like to point out at the start of this whole process and say, well, you guys are so extreme. This is crazy what you're doing with respect to the continuing resolution. For the folks at home, continuing resolution that's what you do when you run government when you don't pass a budget. So for 5 years in a row, we've come to this point in the fiscal year. Fiscal year starts October 1st, and we don't have a budget. So what a continuing resolution does is it says, well, let's just keep things status quo. Well, status quo last fiscal year was a record $3.3 trillion in taxes and $4.1 trillion in spending. That is extreme. Your listeners understand that if they're over budget by that amount, if that's an extreme way to run your family, this is an extreme way to run government. At the end of the day, what I see happening is we will get a grand bargain, if you will, and I see that the president has lost every single day that the government's been shut down, every single day that the monuments are closed and his golf course is open. Every single day we've been winning, and at the end of the day, we will win.
The House gym is open, too, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. The White House, the National Lawn was closed for the veterans, but it was open for the illegal immigrants who rallied yesterday. So, look, you want to sit here and talk about what's open and what's closed, and I'll win that argument all day long.
Jane Dueker?
Well, it is ironic to have people who hate government and basically want to shut it down now complaining that it's in fact shut down. And so, I think that totally loses the entire argument of where we are here, which is, I agree that there needs to be a budget and the tough decisions need to be made about dealing with the deficit, deciding what priorities need to be funded. But what is not on the table is whether we're going to pay our bills.
Well, that's a canard. I mean, the whole idea of defaulting is such a canard. The extension of the raising the debt ceiling is borrowing new money. It's not paying your bills. Debt service, we take in $220 billion a month. Debt servicing is $40 billion a month. We can service our debt all day long. What we can't do is every month we borrow $60 billion more, not service debt, borrow more. So the default is complete.
But this is not about...
Wait a minute. Are you saying that we don't need to raise the debt ceiling?
Absolutely, we do not need to raise the debt ceiling. We can service our debt. What's default mean? Default means you don't pay interest on your debt, and you don't pay principal when it matures. Well, when debt matures, we can pay principal without raising the debt ceiling because it matures. We replace it with a new debt offering.
So all of these economists that are saying the sky is going to fall
are crazy.
Are not true.
No, there are economists that say that if we actually did default and didn't make principal payments, then what they've described will in fact happen. Okay, but here's the challenge. Let's say it's November and we've now got to make $50 billion in debt payments, and we've received $230 billion in revenue, which is what we receive every month. Now we've got to decide, well, how do we prioritize? Do we make this debt payment, or do we turn back to the rest of government, this $4.1 trillion beast of last fiscal year, and say, we need to cut enough from our spending to service our debt?
Here's what I don't understand. First of all, I don't understand all of this. I don't understand any of this.
but question.
But I'll certainly. That doesn't stop me from asking the question.
talking.
Jack Lew,
right,
is going to decide who gets paid and who doesn't get paid.
And when?
I mean,
Exactly.
the Congress gets elected to do that. Jack Lew is an
Abdication.
unelected representative in
Right.
Treasury Department. We are putting in his hands the determination of the United States of America who's going to get paid and who doesn't get paid.
Look, Jack Lew prioritizes what bills get paid when every single day of every single year. That's what the Treasury function is. No,
Except this is different here. And if you looked at the statistics and the numbers from yesterday, the first few days might be okay. But when you've got huge payments on Social Security, huge, that way outweigh and are much larger than what is coming in on a monthly basis. The idea that we're going to be running the government on a day-to-day basis as to what we can pay and what we can't pay, and having unelected, people decide that is nonsense. Not only is it no way to run the government, but what people are what the senator is not focusing on is what the reverberation is going to be on the world economy. When people start figuring out that the United States is playing this game of, we're going to float some bills, they're going to start calling in their debt. We're not going to be able to get their debt.
No.
And,
Jane, you're wrong. I mean, what you said was right, though, was that, yes, every single month we spend $60 to $70 billion more than we take in. Every single month, which is an extreme fiscal situation to be in as a country.
Right.
And so the reason we need to raise the debt ceiling is because every single month we need, in addition to the $17 trillion we're borrowing, we need to borrow another $60 to $70 billion.
But borrowing is different than the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling does not authorize the borrowing of more money. It just says we're going to pay what has already been, we're going to pay for what already has been spent.
No.
Now,
The debt ceiling, you agreed to raise the limit of the total outstanding debt. We're at $17 trillion. The debt limit says that's the total amount of debt you can have outstanding. This government, the way it runs, requires it to add to that $17 trillion $60 billion every single month.
Based on money that's been spent already. This is a situation where you've bought the house and you don't want to pay your mortgage. And that's the problem. That's a phony argument. You could not be. But
more
every
wrong.
other
Hold on a second.
agrees.
Why is that a phony argument?
Because we don't have a mortgage. We don't. To the extent that as a proper analogy is to the extent that we've borrowed money and we've promised interest. Okay, so that we have promised bondholders to pay interest. We can pay interest. But what is the rest of government, and why is that a legal contract? That we've shut down 17% of the government, right? 83% of the government is functioning properly. Right. So right now we've shut down 17% of the government. Why can't we shut down 20%, 25% while we make these debt payments? And that's what can happen.
Well, I mean,
all right, stop that. I want to get Jay in here. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Again, the specific arguments they're making, I like you understand some, not others. But here's my take on this. Every once in a while, it's kind of like when you're going to have the family Thanksgiving over to your house, and you say, well, you dread it, but it's good because it gets you to clean up the house, it gets you to do the lawn. Every once in a while, we got to do something to put government back in shape. It's not like government was running smoothly before the shutdown. And I think this is now forcing a lot of people to focus on these very issues that John and Jane are raising. And, people say, well, the Republicans are shutting it down, the Democrats. No. I think what is now finally happening is the discussions that need to happen. And until we have those discussions, until we cut government, until we reduce spending, the rest of the world's going to look at us kind of askew anyway.
We're not coming to a bargain, though. That's the big lie.
That's
part of the negotiations.
That's Jay Kanzler. She's Jane Dueker. That's John Lamping. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to tell you what the Republicans should be doing as opposed to what they are doing. Big 550 KTRS. Jay Kanzler is with us, local attorney. Also, in terms of full disclosure, I've hired him for numerous occasions. including but not limited to fixing a ticket in Callaway County. Do I have to pay that yet?
Yeah, it's coming due, and I am getting a commission when I sell your boat.
Wow.
Also, Jane Dueker, former chief of staff to Governor Holden, local attorney here in town. Jane, good morning.
Good morning.
State Senator John Lamping filling in for John Deal. We are on stltoday.com. You can watch us there with 4 HD cameras, and we will tweet this out and Facebook it out at the end of the show. Here's what the Republicans, since no one asked me, here's where they've gone wrong. The argument they're making now is the monetary argument. The debt's too high. We need to cut spending and all of those things. In this continuing resolution, the Democrats agreed 100% with the Republican number. So the Republicans said to continue funding the government while we come up with this budget, which should have been done months ago. Here's the number. Democrats said, okay, fine. So they gave them 100%. Mm-hmm. Then the Republicans said, well, wait a minute, we need to delay Obamacare. Okay, so it was supposed to be about Obamacare. The minute the government was shut down, no one's talking about Obamacare anymore. Now the Democrats are on the defensive, not able to go on the offensive. You have yet to sign up for the Affordable Care Act. It's crashing. You can't get to it. They've had 3 years to set up the computer program, and Republicans can't get that message out because you're talking about the debt and the closure of the government and what World War II monuments open instead of now's the time to complain about Obamacare. So what have you done? The Republicans have given every single federal employee at least a week's paid vacation, even though they're complaining about how much government spending. So all they did was give the government workers a paid vacation because they're going to get paid when it's all said and done. And Obamacare has been able to continue on without anybody truly criticizing it for not actually working.
McGraw, I think at times we're stuck in this haze of media to think that people don't get a message unless it comes through the media. There's a message that's going on every single time a citizen in this country gets on that website and it crashes. There's in every single mailbox that people are getting their increases in their premiums and the change in their deductible. I mean, you're kidding yourself to think that the public is not completely aware how extraordinary this rollout of Obama, the failure that is this rollout, is happening with or without the media's approval. So this whole idea that, the media is talking about the shutdown and they're talking about the debt ceiling instead of talking about how bad Obamacare is, it's foolish. People know exactly how bad it is. They're experiencing it one person at a time. I mean, you saw this morning Hawaii. You know how many people have actually signed up for the Affordable Care Act in Hawaii? 0. You know how many people in California? The percentage of people that are getting on the website and are actually getting all the way through is less than 5%. We don't need to message that. It's happening. It's real. It's live. People know how bad this thing is, and it's just every single day it gets worse and worse and worse, and people experience it more and more.
And if it were going that bad, and maybe it is, I mean, the approval rate of the Republicans based on this stunt is really bad for a reason.
37%, baby. 37%. Wolf Blitzer did a special segment, a half an hour on George Bush's approval rating, getting a 37%. This president, he's won twice. Popular vote 51.5%. He's at 37%. Who's winning and who's losing in the?
But how can you say? But Republicans are at 28%.
Right.
Okay. Obama's at 37%.
Here's what we know.
Obama's winning.
Here's what we know.
He's higher.
No, that's not true. Here's what we know in these generic polls. You ask somebody, what do you think Republican Party? What do you think Democratic Party? Oh, I hate the Democratic Party. Well, what do you think of your Democratic congressperson? Oh, I love that person.
Right. Well,
you know that, Jane. You know that when you ask the generic question,
the same people saying this is skewed are the same people that said that Obama wasn't going to win president. I mean, I think there's a level of delusion about what people are saying. I don't think that this is a mandate that Obamacare is going well. I think what this is saying is, look, if you want to deal with Obamacare, win elections, get the votes, and deal with that on a legislative basis. But people are understanding that the government is being held hostage for something that these people can't get done.
And only 37% of them approve of the job that the executive is doing in this situation.
Jane, I disagree slightly in that it's the Republicans. The president gets up and says, I will not negotiate with, insert terrorists instead of Republicans. That's what he's saying. I will not negotiate. That is kind of holding things up as well. His job is to find a solution. You know, we bash Charlie Dooley in here because you say it's your job. Figure it out. Fix it, what's going on.
It's also Boehner's job to find a solution.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But I agree. So bash Boehner, bash Harry Reid, and bash
They
the
had
president.
a deal.
You know,
I mean, Boehner admitted to George Stephanopoulos that we had a deal on the debt ceiling and the continuing resolution, and he also admitted that he bailed on that deal because a slight wing, the right wing, nut job wing of the Republican Party said, we're going to declare war on Obamacare. Now, you have, and Missouri does it, and Missouri does it quite well, and you know, Senator, that you cannot legislate by appropriation in Missouri, and there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is you don't hold up the budget because there's other legislation you don't like. Separate them. And
Jane,
that's what the
Jane,
president is saying, and
where's
that
the
is
budget?
inappropriate.
There's no budget.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
There's no budget.
The negotiation needs to be over the budget, not the continuing
Okay,
resolution
look,
or Obamacare.
it-
So we get the continuing resolution done, and then I think you're right. These people have a duty to
What
get
does
a
it
budget.
take to get a budget? I mean, look,
It takes two chambers of the House and the
The
president.
Saturday before the government shut down, a week ago last Saturday, the president played golf. Okay? That's
And
where
John
he
Boehner
is.
got in the tanning bed. I mean, are we really having this conversation? That's ridiculous. That is nonsense. Okay, they both do this. I agree everybody is also to blame. But I also agree if you set the precedent that we're going to negotiate regular substantive legislation in the
But Jane,
context of paying our bills.
Where's the buck stop? Does the buck stop at
with
the
every single one of them,
No. There's our famous Missouri president. He knew exactly where the buck stopped
right?
with him.
Right, and he went to war on a do-nothing legislature, and I think that this president probably ought to follow in the same footsteps as Harry Truman.
Well, maybe when he makes the turn, he'll get involved in the
He's
fight.
turned.
A couple of things. I think Senator Lamping is right when the majority of people don't like Obamacare, but a larger percentage of people like the Affordable Care Act. Also, when you ask them individually, are you for doing away with pre-existing conditions? They're for it. Are you for having your child on your insurance till age 26? They're
You're
for
for
it.
it.
There are many things that
Look,
people are for when it
McGraw,
comes to the Affordable Care Act.
If you ask people, are you for me giving you something, they're going to be for it a vast majority of the time.
Right.
They are. Doesn't matter
And
what it
people
is.
are gonna be
Are
against
you for me
taxes.
taking your taxes away? Yes, I'm. Yeah, if you eliminate my taxes, great. Are you for me paying for your education? Yeah, I'd love you to pay for my college education. You for me for forgiving all your debt? Yeah, I'd love to forgive all your debt. That's meaningless. Who cares? I mean, that's that. You know. I have a minor in statistics in business school. I work for a pollster. It's called the bias of non-response is what you're referring to, and how you frame a question in a poll. That's why so many polls don't mean a whole lot. But when you ask somebody, do you approve or disapprove of this person, that's a very meaningful number. If you approve or disapprove of a party or of Congress or of your state, whatever, that's a more less meaningful number.
I've been criticized for the last number of years for speaking out in favor of the Affordable Care Act and being called a liberal and a communist and everything else. I think, and no one's been able to answer this for me, I think my support of the Affordable Care Act is actually very conservative because I am sick and tired of people going to the emergency room on a Saturday night and using the emergency room for all sorts of things.
for strep throat.
And then ultimately the bill comes back on me.
Right.
I like the fact that the federal government is now forcing people to pay for their own health insurance. That's a very conservative ideal for me. I don't understand how that became all of a sudden some liberal icon, communist, socialist idea.
Well, look, what didn't happen in the creation of the Affordable Care Act, and I would say that you're dealing with 1/6 of the economy, and you're dealing with, we look at a family structure, the health and well-being of the family is a significant part of the family. What didn't happen with legislation that dramatically altered the relationship between us, our society, and government is what did happen with the creation of Social Security, what did happen with the Civil Rights Act, what did happen with Medicaid, and that is there was bipartisan support. It is extraordinary to think that a law was passed that impacted 1/6 of the entire economy without one Republican vote. We talk about negotiating. Where the Republicans weren't even near the table during that whole
But
process.
Republicans, weren't allowed to vote for it. And what do you think Obama would have given to gotten a couple of Republican votes?
What do you think was going on?
Well, they
what do you
gave
think was going on?
Nebraska an exemption so that they could get his vote.
Yeah,
That's
the
right.
senators.
Exactly.
Well, that's not the way you
But,
handle legislation.
but again, it's very conservative to say, hey, you know what? If you want insurance, you're going to have to pay for it.
Right.
Why
Well,
is that a
individual
bad idea?
responsibility.
Well, okay, if that, with all due respect,
Yeah.
the law in Missouri today, we have 5.9 million people. 900,000 people do not pay for health care. The Affordable Care Act would have had 300,000 more not pay for health care. So this idea that you're asking people to pay for their health care, you're wrong. The Affordable Care Act, the net result is 20% of the country doesn't
It
pay for
hasn't
their
been
health care.
implemented. How do
Well,
you
the
even
big-
know that yet?
Well,
the biggest
but-
thing they say, President Obama says, is, for most of you folks out there, you're not even going to have to pay for this.
Well,
the government's going to
so
pay for this.
But while Missouri's telling people we don't want to be part of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, Missouri passes a law forcing insurance companies to cover autism. So now I've got to pay for kids who have autism. I don't have any kids, so why am I paying for autism kids? And now people are complaining, hey, why am I paying for maternity leave? Because my new insurance plan has to pay for maternity leave. I'm not planning on having any kids. All of the rhetoric, everyone's using this for their own benefit. And what's lost in this is, how are we going to fix a completely broken current system?
And it better happen in a bipartisan way. That's how you're going to do it, where people come together and celebrate the outcome. The same thing happened in all those other seminal pieces of legislation that passed. Think about the deals that had to be struck to have passed the Civil Rights Act. And you got bipartisan support to get that done. That didn't
Obama
happen.
was going to make sure that he got the whole enchilada, and he rammed it through. And had he come to the table and we done this with maybe the beans over here and the meat over here and the queso over there, we probably could have gotten some bipartisan support.
They've had 4 years.
Jay
to make
Jay
changes.
Kanzler, Jane Dueker, John Lamping. We'll come back. 9:55, Wrap it
Big
up on 550 KTRS. Jay Kanzler has a parting shot.
On the whole issue of the death penalty, point for Koster for enforcing state law, the death penalty that is overwhelmingly supported by Missourians. Governor Nixon has again fouled out by saying one thing, we're going to go ahead and enforce our law and don't care what the EU says, and then doing another thing by crumbling under pressure and returning the drug to the manufacturer.
That is a fascinating story to me. So
It really is.
you would rather have him use the drug and then the company then withhold it from everybody else.
The company sells 50 million doses of that drug in the United States every year. There is no way that company is giving up that kind of market just because one vial is used in this one execution.
That is Jay Kanzler. John, did you have a parting shot?
I better see Shelby Miller or Waka before I see Lance Lynn.
Oh, he's throwing. Wait a
Oh.
minute. We have a rule on this show. There's a couple of rules on this show.
I'm
That was
filling
us-
in.
yeah,
John
he's
didn't-
just
John
doing
didn't
his
let me
best.
I
know.
understand. You did not get the disclosure form. You are not allowed to criticize nurses for newborns,
That's easy.
and you're not allowed to criticize Mike Matheny. So that was dangerously close to
Oh,
criticizing
come
Mike
on.
Matheny. I'm just saying.
I agree with them.
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
We will give you
Shelby
a
Miller,
special.
game one, baby.
We will give you a special exemption. Okay, we're gonna give you a special exemption, a year
All right.
exemption
All right.
for him to learn the rules.
Yep.
Jane, do you have anything else?
My parting is I wanted to publicly thank Senator Lamping for working with me for foster kids. I'm on the board of the Foster and Adoptive Care Coalition, and Senator Lamping took the lead on all
Wait a
foster
minute.
and
Wait a
adoption
minute. This
issues.
is a Republican and a Democrat working together.
I know, shocking.
Side by side.
And
Oh
we
my
did.
goodness!
And we got passed.
What
Thank
is
you.
this world
Thank
coming
you.
to?